All right, guys, welcome back to another episode. Today, we're going to talk about NAR, the National Association of Realtors. At the time of this recording, we're recording this. There's a ruling that just came out. I'm going to read this because I think it'd be much easier to read this. So, there's a ruling that just came out where NAR is basically, you know, they're being part of a lawsuit that being sued for $1.8 billion. So, I'm going to read this real quick. It says jury slams NAR and brokerages with 1.8 billion verdict over elevated commissions. So, a jury has ruled against the National Association of Realtors and major residential brokerages, holding them accountable for 1.8 million in billion in damages, citing a conspiracy to artificially inflate home sales commissions. So, what happened? After approximately 2 weeks of hearing testimonies from both the plaintiffs and defendants, the jury directed the NAR,
Mhm.
along with real estate franchises, Home Services of America and Keller Williams, to pay 1.78 billion in damages. These damages are owed to the sellers over 260,000 homes across Missouri, Kansas, and Illinois, who are all the plaintiffs in this case. Which I also heard that I think Berkshire Hathaway, I don't know, they settled early
Mm.
on. And I think Abby Holiday, a few kind of like, we're not going through that.
Yeah.
So, quick recap says the lawsuit primarily revolves around broker commissions. These are fees that home sellers pay to brokers for carrying out transactions and offering services, such as arranging property viewings. Typically, these fees are incorporated into homes' listing price. So, in the focus, it says that the plaintiffs claim a rule inflates home prices by encouraging agents to favor properties with better commissions. This leads sellers to pay higher commission rates, potentially adding billions annually. For context, in 2020, Americans spent over 85 billion on residential real estate commissions. NAR has faced prior scrutiny from the Department of Justice for potential antitrust breaches. I don't know about you, but 85 billion in residential commissions. You, you do that. That's a lot of commissions. Um, but and of course, obviously, they're basically they're saying that the buyer's agent and the seller's agent are causing an issue. Being like you get paid. This property says I'm going to pay you 3%. This one says I'm going to pay you 2%, and you know they're almost going to wash out the buyer's agent. Is what it seems like. So this is why this matters. The verdict has a potential to fundamentally transform the U.S. real estate market, impacting the way Americans buy homes and the structure of broker fees. Although the final judgment is pending, the outcome can modify or even nationally prohibit the cooperative compensation rule. Such a change might relieve home sellers from bearing the cost of the commissions for both listing and buying brokers. What are your thoughts?
Well, if the sellers aren't paying the commission for both the buyer's agent and the listing agent, I don't know how the buyers are going to be able to afford to pay a commission on top of their down payment and closing cost, and that's
Right.
going to be tricky.
So what if the I mean, for example, for a realtor, right? Let's say the transaction is $300,000 transaction. They is the buyer going to actually have an extra 9 grand to come up with because it's a 3%, right?
Mm-hmm.
3% of the 300,000, and that's still low. That's not even the home average. I think home average is like 350 right now, 350 to 400. It might be 450, but I saw somewhere it said 450, but just depending on the area. But are they going to come up? Are they going to have
It's
9 grand?
already difficult for people like first-time home buyers to afford a home that's nice.
Right, right. Which I did see that they're bringing back those small like first time home buyer $100,000 homes.
Yeah.
Those are coming back. Did you see that?
I did not.
Yeah, those are coming back. So they're the $100,000. I mean, you're talking
Are
about
they
like
townhomes?
it's a cardboard box. It's they're small, like the property you just took over to manage. It's those, but they're
Okay.
they're probably
Yeah.
gonna be they're gonna be like that.
800, 900
Yep.
square feet.
But the motherfuckers go up. They don't go out. They're going up, and they're even leaner.
But they're detached.
Yeah, it's like Marissa's old neighborhood.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's those. So $100,000.
Do they have 1-car driveways? Oh, please say
I think so.
no. Oh my God.
I think so. I think so.
That street's gonna be horrible.
Yeah. I think so. But the I agree. I mean, a buyer is not going to be able to come. I think the only way they're going to come up with this or fix this is if they do it, they need to they're going to either have to do one of two things. Either
have to finance it.
Yes, we get to roll into the loan, right, which
Yep.
causes a whole nother thing.
Mm-hmm.
Or
now you can afford a $70,000 home.
Yeah. right. You know, I think that or what'll have to happen is and I had this discussion the other day. My dad and I had this talk, and I was telling him I think what's going to end up happening is if that doesn't happen, you're going to see more like you'll have to have an intermediary person who has no help in the transaction. They're just there to do the moving parts because you and I have worked with first time home buyers, and it's hell for the agent. Not saying we don't want to help the first time home buyers, just saying like
so much indecisiveness and
a lot of education.
Yeah.
And when you don't understand the process and there's not someone there to hold your
It's
hand
an
through
emotional
it.
roller coaster.
We were first time home buyers. You were a first time home buyer before I was. And I know I surely as hell was a first time home buyer right after you. And I know when I had to learn the process, it was wild. Like I'm like,
You ran away.
I ran away. I had to drag my ass back to the title company. Like I didn't want anything to do with it. Like it was scary, you know, because you think like, so you need someone there to help you because if you've never gone through it and you don't have any buyer's agents anymore because 260,000 people who own homes decided to get rid of those people. When their kids go to buy a house, they're going to get raped.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to understand the process, or they're going to make mistakes. So they're going to, I don't need
Costly mistakes.
I don't want the title policy. We don't need all that. We'll just do this, you know, and then someone has claim to the house. There's so many things that can go wrong in that situation. So the only way to solve that without a buyer's agent is going to end up being almost an online style of buying to a degree where everything's pretty laid out. Because I mean, buying a home, it's not hard, but you got to be educated. And I mean, think about some people that don't buy, or we went through this recently. You were working with somebody that was their first time to buy a home. Great credit, great money, perfect candidate. They didn't know shit about buying a home, and they backed out at the last second. You had everything done. Like I'm not talking about back out like last second. I'm talking about the last second. Like it's time to close here very shortly, and they just totally back out and I don't want to do it. And they had a really good deal, but they didn't understand the process. That's going to cause a problem. I mean, you're going to get rid of those people, you know, and then the sellers, you know, something to, I understand that as agents, your job is to do what? Your job is to do the best for the client. You're supposed to. And I don't disagree with that. That should be in any industry, right? You're doing what's best for the client. But at the same time, you still got to do what's good for you too, because if someone says, well, I'm not going to pay you, I'm only going to, leasing, perfect example. You've seen those, they'll pay the agent $1. That's fucked up. You know what I mean? But I got to do what's right for the client.
Yeah,
and go hungry.
In that instance, the client would have to pay the difference.
Right. What I'm saying is, but I got to go hungry, right? So, you know, when that's not fair because someone says, well, I'm like, so I can understand why an agent might say, well, let's lean towards this way, you know? So we've made less on homes.
Mhm.
There's one that pays this and one that pays that, as an agent, of course you're going to be like, I hope they go for that one, but you're not going to lean them towards the other one. It's just, you're there to do what you need to do. But at the same time, you also, if you're going to make $1, right, you're probably going to have a conversation and say,
Yep.
look, I can help you to a degree of $1.
If you want this one, we'll take you to that one. But just know that this fee is coming out of your pocket.
Right. And they're not going to want to do that, right? It's not designed for that, So I understand changes happen. Changes are going to come through. I mean, it's just going to be a part of what happens, but the world changes, business models change, structure, of things change. So the only thing I see is either rolled into the loan or it's going to have to go and become a transaction that says that's almost all online, right? Your showing is going to be, self-showing because you got to get rid of the buyer's agent
Mhm.
and then you have to self-show. As crazy as it is, it's almost like open door. That's probably what's going to have to happen. If the changes happen, open door was ahead of the curve. Shit, open door's probably on the forefront of the lawsuit. It's probably like, all right, hey, let's get these 260 people together. You guys got screwed over. You should sue those brokerages. And they probably came through. They probably were the forefront. And they're like, all right, good. Now we're in. Because they've spent, they have, if you think about it, they have the infrastructure to a large degree, right? They're selling the home. They have the mortgage part, the mortgage arm. They have the infrastructure to completely cut out the buyer's agent and say no. The only problem that I would see that they would have to fix, or anyone for that matter, if they go to that model, is the legality part of it's all leaning towards the consumer. On the residential side of things, it all leans towards the consumer, right? So they would have to actually do what? They're going to have to figure out the legality part to where they don't make any mistakes and say, oh, well, so-and-so tried to bamboozle me. Or does that make
Yeah.
sense? I think that's what would have to happen. They would have to, because if the whole thing is leaning towards the buyer, right? The seller, it's not in the seller's favor. It's in the buyer's favor. So if you don't have a buyer's agent to hold their hand or be a therapist, or what do you do?
Yeah, they have to somehow protect themselves from a lawsuit.
Come on, Misty. Let's solve this problem right now in 5 minutes. How do we do it? It would be, right? You
Yeah.
might have more lawsuits in terms of that because it's all leaning towards the buyer. So maybe that's so. What do you think would have to happen? Do you think it'd be rolling alone? What do you think? If you had to predict it, what would you say?
That's pretty much all I can think of is rolling it into the loan. Or they going unrepresented?
Yeah.
And then
But we have a joke in the household. If anybody listening, we have a joke in the household. Have you ever seen Dave Chappelle? There's a character called Negrodamus. And I gotta lay it out for you here. If you're Negrodamus is it's Paul Mooney. Paul Mooney is the he was the writer for Richard Pryor, and he's funny as hell. And Paul Mooney is dressed as not he's dressed as Negrodamus, making fun of Nostradamus, making predictions, right? So in our household, we have a joke. We call me Honky Damus because I'm not black. So my Honky Damus prediction, Misty, is going to be if the landscape changes, it's going to go to an open door model.
Yeah.
That's what's going to happen. If they don't push the other one, it'll go to open door. So all you motherfuckers better buckle up because shit's going to change. I don't think NAR, I don't think it will change. I think if they've been under scrutiny before, but I think if it does, it's going to go to open door model. That's what's going to happen. And it'll be even more streamlined of buying a home without a buyer's agent. You'll still pay a seller's commission, but it'll be more streamlined. So anybody who all they do is buyers and that's all they do, or you didn't pad yourself up. I'm very big about that. That's part of my honky domus predictions is you got to pad yourself up, right? If you don't pad yourself up in certain areas of your, financial, situations, stuff like this shows up and it'll wreck you all the way through. We've experienced stuff like that. I think that's what happened. So that way, a year from now, 2 years from now, we can go back and listen to this, and Honky Domus predicted exactly what was going to happen. But you got to admit, though, Honky Domus is right. Is he not? Huh?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Almost on a regular. So, anyhow, that's my prediction. I need to get get one of those hats, the Paul Mooney hat. Have you ever? I've showed you, right? The Paul Mooney hat. I got to look real quick. This is funny. The Negro. He predicts. One of the predictions they ask, like, Negrodamus, how do we know we have weapons of mass destruction? It says the lady stands up and asks Paul Mooney, Negrodamus, how do we know that Iraq has weapons of mass destruction? And then Paul Mooney looks at her and he's like, because George Bush has the receipt. Oh, it's funny, man. Here you go, honey. I'm going to show you. We'll see, I need my Negrodamus hat.
You could probably find one at like the Ren Festival.
Yeah, dude. That's what I'm saying. He knows it. Spider knows. Dude, Negrodamus, man. I got to have a honky domus outfit. I've predicted so much shit just in the business. It's so funny. This is when we talk about this stuff, I'm like, this is it. The Ren Festival, is that where I need to go, Spider?
That's what that hat looks like to me.
That's fine. He's looking it up too. I have a gift. Thank you, Negrodamus. Oh, that's so funny, man. I used to, it's funny is I used to watch that and it didn't make a lot of sense to me. I'm like a teenager and kind of laughed at some of the stuff. And then I got older and I was like, yeah, that shit's funny. As I dug a little more on Paul Mooney, I was like, this is some funny shit. I like Richard Pryor a lot too. So, but yeah, I think that'll happen. We'll have to get our hat. So, but that's my prediction, guys. Hope none of it happens. If anything, we just keep things the way they are. And maybe next time you guys see me on YouTube, you'll see me with my Honky Domus hat. So, other than that, guys, we'll catch everybody next time.